would actually come down.
Everything turns.
Yep.
The collection is about early automotive innovation when it comes to engineering.
Welcome to BarryTsGarage. Good to have you back. We're in Pinellas Park, Florida, which is in the Tampa Bay area. And we're looking forward to showing you some amazing cars, some very unique and innovative engineering that's been carefully collected over many years, many of them from Europe. You're in for a treat. All right, I'm here with Olivier Cerf, and Olivier, you have an amazing collection of cars here. And some of these cars seem to have been around a long time, like even longer than you almost. Why don't you tell me about the history of the museum here and your interest in it?
Yeah, so basically it started really in 1957 with my father not having enough money and buying his first car out of a police auction, and then he bought 4 of them like that and never sold them. You know, and then because he liked engineering, then he came to the U.S. in 1982. In 1984, those 4 cars came here. And then, you know, it started where one day he bought a sleeve engine car, you know, the Knight patent. And we didn't know what a sleeve engine was. And, you know, and so, you know, we learned about it. And then we started collecting cars about engineering, you know, front wheel drive pre-war cars from the 1920s. Rear engine, rear wheel drive, but Mercedes, like nobody knows that Mercedes did rear engine cars, and then the Tatras, and then we just, you know, focus always on engineering so that when someone comes here, they'll see something different that they've never seen before. That, you know, usually I always say probably 80% of the cars you've never seen, you know, so, which is the fun part about it. So, you know, you won't see a Corvette or Ferrari. Not that they're bad cars at all, but it's just because we're focused really on engineering and what really started in engineering back in early 10s, like the electric car, like, you know, the Owens magnetic, you know, hybrid really,
Right.
You know, gasoline, generator, electric motor, and so forth. You know, and they're cool cars, right? So there's always different types of engineering, and people try different ways of building cars, because back then, it was also a lot easier to start a car company than it is today. Today, it's almost impossible if you don't have huge backing.
Right.
Back then, you could be a small company and be inventive and try different ideas. So yeah, so that's what we did. And, you know, now, you know, I always say the collection's almost done, but I discovered something new. Like, you know, well, the last one is the Elmore. Elmore is a 1910 4-cylinder 2-stroke engine, US. I did not know that 3 years ago, that the US made 4-cylinder 2-stroke cars,
Right.
you know, and but they did. So that's, you know, that's the fun part also about discovering different technology, different engineers that people didn't know even existed, or I didn't know. So we keep learning what, you know, about engineering of our automobile. So I can't tell you the next car because I probably have never heard of it before.
Right.
You know,
You're going to learn about it.
Yes.
Now, why don't you tell me a little bit about your crew, because you have a crew here that is doing restorations seemingly constantly or ongoing.
Right. Yes.
And a lot of people don't have that going on.
Right. So yeah. So the crew, we have 3-person a crew. We have a mechanic, we have a body, and we have interior. Okay, and so we're able to restore, keep the cost down on restoration of cars. Okay, but you know, the museum is supported by our company next door, Polypack, which we make packaging equipment, shrink wrapping equipment, and it helps support this crazy hobby and be able to show this collection to the public. Without Polypack, this, you know, would not be possible, because of course it's, you know, it takes a lot, you know, to do and then to keep them running and learning. And so, yeah.
Well, it's quite a commitment, and it's actually a real generosity to the car hobby for someone like you to have the commitment to show them, to keep them clean, to keep them running, to be restoring the next project. I mean, that's hats off to you for that and your family.
Thank you. You know, we're lucky we can do it, you know, and hopefully we'll keep going for years and years.
Right on.
You know, that's what Daniel here, our director, is here for.
I'm very glad. I was glad to meet Daniel. He's been doing a great job and showing me around. So Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thanks for
Okay.
coming.
Okay, you got it. Daniel, tell me about this 1905 Franklin.
This is another very new addition to the collection.
Okay.
This has been on the floor for about a month and a half.
Oh.
And this is a very, very cool car because of how advanced it was for 1905.
Okay.
And so this Model F has an air-cooled engine, which is not common at the time. Of course, John Wilkinson, who was an engineer for Franklin Automobile, designed this air-cooled engine. He actually invented the air-cooled engine. And so it was 4 cylinders, could produce about 12 horsepower and a top speed of about 30 miles an hour. And what's very interesting to me is when we got this vehicle, Andy, the mechanic, he had this thing running in like 20 minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
Didn't take much, huh?
It didn't take much at all. And it runs really well. And it's got a few really unique features to it. One being the rear tonneau. It's actually detachable. So if you want it to just be a 2-seater, you just take off the tonneau and now you've got a 2-seater. But if you do have the tonneau on it and you've got people who will be riding in the back, this front seat here actually tilts to the side.
Okay.
And that's how people would be able to get to the back.
Oh, that's the access. Okay.
Yep.
Now, I'm also interested in the fact this is a transverse engine layout. In other words, the 4 cylinders are 90 degrees to the rear wheels.
There are only
Either side
about
of that.
1,500 of these made. And the original cost would have been $1,700, which in 1905 is a lot of money.
Right. And I'm also looking at a coil spring. Now, there are leaf springs as well. So it's like
That's
it's got
right.
a leaf spring and coil spring combined.
Yep.
Maybe they're looking for the best of both worlds.
Well, yeah, exactly. With the full elliptic leaf spring suspension system, you would have had a much smoother ride.
Okay.
And so that was definitely something that they were purposeful with. And this car, you know, in 1905, it would have handled very well. It would have ridden very well. It has a wood chassis, so it's light,
Pretty lightweight. Yeah.
agile.
I mean, it looks really low. It always looks like basically it's a 2x4.
That's actually a really good way to, yeah, it's kind of,
And
there's not much to it, so it's nice and light.
I realized I was mistaken. What I was looking at through the center was actually the exhaust pipe. And there's a giant chain, sprocket and chain off to this end.
Yep.
Where I'm seeing the drive come off for the rear wheels. Clutch transmission combo. But it definitely has an offset chain drive going off to the back wheels. So this is pretty interesting.
The whole idea behind this car, according to the original sales brochure, was it's light. They were really pushing light.
Right.
And
no, it's a very lightweight design, obviously, to make it would handle better. It wouldn't need as much fuel or as much engine.
They all have to run. Of
Okay.
course, they break down, but they all have to run. So
Sure.
let's see if we can start this one, right?
Okay.
All right. I gotta turn on the fuel.
It's an air-cooled car, obviously.
Franklin by the engineer Wilkinson. Wilkinson and really started the air-cooled engine in the United States.
Okay.
And then he developed, he was the first one in 1904 to do a 4-cylinder transverse engine, because like this, the air could cool all 4-cylinder when you was moving together. That's
Nice
why he
and
did
evenly.
that.
Yeah, right.
Basically, start. Well, it's been a while, but you know, we'll
See
see.
if it'll energize.
Here we go. Voila! I have to turn it off because of the fume
Sure.
inside.
Okay.
But for a 1905 car, not too bad,
That's
right?
beautiful. That is fantastic.
You know, it's all simple engineering, and the reason the air-cooled were popular is because in the wintertime, it was not like a water cool. The engine could not freeze.
Right.
Right, so the water would freeze and it was a problem. So a lot of actually doctors drove in Franklins because they didn't have to worry about the heat in the summertime or the cold in the wintertime.
Fantastic.
And, you know, it was a lighter car. It was, oh, you got to check this out too.
Okay.
So just to get to the back seat, here you go.
Wow, there's access. Just
Your
right through
access
there.
to the back seat through the passenger.
That's beautiful. Look at that. And quite a lot of room back here too. It's
Yes.
beautiful, roomy.
So Franklin was all about weight, was all about, you know, the chassis is ash. And so he said, you know, the lighter the car, the smaller the engine can be, the less fuel consumption.
Right.
And, you know, so that's the 1905. Then here you've got a 1917, and the 1917 gets 40 miles to the gallon.
Really?
And it's a straight six. So
No.
air-cooled, of course, because that's all Wilkinson designed. It was air-cooled, and Franklin did only air-cooled until 1933 when they finally went out of business. So this is also air-cooled, and when you close it, the air goes through the fins right here,
I see.
and you have a fan. It's called a fan that draws the air right through it. You can see it down here.
Okay, I'm going to get a picture of that.
But so to cool the car, you can see it right down here. Because all that is sealed. So see, you see these metal plates here? You have them here too. So when that closes, that seals the whole car. So the air has to go through those
It doesn't
fins.
have a choice. It's not arbitrary. It's just going to go right through.
Right.
So these are individual cylinders. They're individual
Yep.
jobs. And I guess this is your coil here, your
Yes.
electrical coil, and a distributor
The
in there.
distributor, yep.
And an
then
updraft carburetor.
Believe this one has a compressor too for the, you've got a little air compressor right here that you're hard to see, but right here you hook it up to the top, your hose. When the engine runs, you can inflate your tires.
Oh, is that right?
Yep.
That's fantastic.
Yep.
Again, doctors would appreciate that. They're not going to get stopped.
That's
They're
right.
going to keep going. The tire's low, off they go.
That's right.
Man. Now at this point, it got to be a much bigger car, of course.
Yes. So, and actually Franklin in 1931 started making 12-cylinder air-cooled cars.
Did they really?
And then they went, they didn't produce too many of it because in 1933, like a lot of the automobile manufacturers went bankrupt. The recession and all that, it was a huge struggle.
Right. Now, what can you tell me about the design, the front windshield design? So
yeah,
unusual.
so it's a V shape for aerodynamic. And also, so the design here, this body is all aluminum, and he only used 2 doors. So again, he was thinking about cost. And so the seats inside, they pivot, but you only have 2 doors in the center. So you go through here, you pivot the seat to go to the front.
Oh.
So there's no 4 seats. So it made it more rigid.
That's right. It's going to be a stronger body with less opening.
Yeah, this car here, you see, it's a big car, it's a tall car, but we're still getting 40 miles to the gallon, right?
Wow.
1917, that's crazy when you think of it.
That is fascinating. It's amazing. These cars are so roomy in this day. It's just crazy. So this is a drivable car also?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yes, they all have to be, you know, of course, some of them may not start right away, or we may have to, you know, change the gas, but all the cars are tagged and ready to go.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
No, that takes a lot. That's a
so that does take a lot, because you have to make sure that you know, the batteries are charged. You got to make sure that, you know, the fuel, and we have to start it because the fuel after it gets old, and you just can't keep the old fuel into the cars.
Do you manage to get methanol-free gas somewhere?
Yes, we do. Yeah, and because of Florida, a lot of the gas stations carry ethanol-free for the boats. So they get to the boats, they put ethanol free.
Excellent.
So we're lucky here in Florida. We've got just around the corner a gas station with it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and that obviously lasts a lot longer than
much longer. Yeah,
the gas there. So
for sure,
we focus all around engineering. All right, so front wheel drive, and here this is a car, the Audi. We've been looking for that for 20 years.
Wow.
And we finally found it in Lakeland outside.
Oh my
It
goodness.
was just wait till you see this right here. This was only an hour away. Oh yeah.
My goodness.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
So we call it a redirection because it was so much work. You see, there's things growing inside.
Man, you had such a project to start
with. And originally it was black, and you can see that right here. See, the whole back end's not even holding.
Wow.
See, my hair used to be blonde, and this car turned it white. But
that's crazy.
It took good 6-7 years, and it was so much work that we decided to paint it two-tone instead of black. The interior was original burgundy, so we saved it. We did that, and it's the only Audi 225 with 2 spares.
Oh, really?
All the other ones only have 1 spare, and this one has 2 spares.
Wow. I love your choice of colors, and I know color can be so subjective, but it looks great.
Yes.
It really does.
Yeah, and that one now runs very well. It's got we had to redo a brand new carburetor because it was pot metal.
Oh yeah.
And we found somebody in France that were actually was making those same carburetor because they were also used on the Peugeot 601.
Okay.
So that was lucky.
Yeah.
And the sport wheels actually were purchased from Audi themselves. So they came from Audi, Germany. And that was the last 6 wheels they had. And the hubcaps, they didn't have any. So we had to make them here in our shop.
And what kind of engine is it? Is it a straight 6?
It's a straight 6, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. Yeah, so it's a Wanderer engine.
When I look at those pictures and then I see how it is now.
Yeah, and then you know what is funny about this, or what is good about this one, is you can also open the door from the back.
Oh, look at that.
So, you know, if you want to keep your friends in the back, you don't want them out, well, too bad. They can do it themselves. Yeah, so you got a handle on the front here, and you got a handle in the back.
Which is especially tricky with a rear hinge door, too.
Right. Yeah, so Audi started making front-wheel drive in 1935, actually.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the first year then?
Yes.
Front-wheel drive 6-cylinder, that had to be quite a combination.
So they also did a 220 cabriolet that was started in 232.
Okay.
So you see that the 220 was Europe's first car to combine front-wheel drive and a 6-cylinder. And Cosmo was the first birotor. They did Series 1 and Series 2. Series 1 started in 67, and it was only produced in Japan. So since then, there's been a few of them that's come to the U.S., but this one still has the original engine, runs great, has air conditioning inside.
Wow.
It has, you can see here the compressor.
Right.
And it's a very, very, you know, it's actually a great driver, very good, a great driver. And Mazda was the most successful in Rotaries, right?
Yeah.
So they did, they went ahead, they even won Le Mans with the Rotary.
Did they really? I didn't remember that.
Yeah, so I believe it's 92 or 93 they won Le Mans. So there was only 3 manufacturers. So NSU, of course, right next to the Citroën, NSU started Rotaries in the early 60s with the single rotor, the Prism, the NSU Prism, and then in 67 they did the RO80 Rotary. Citroën also did Rotaries, but Citroën did the production, did 847 cars, but it was during the time where gas was very expensive, 74, 75, and Citroën repurchased all the cars.
Really?
And gave them other cars because they was using too much gas. And in France, you had a law that you had to supply all the parts for, I think it was 5 to 10 years. So when they saw that, they said, they pulled the production, gave the car, and destroyed a lot of the cars.
Wow.
So there's still a few left, but you know, this is funny because here's the spare right there. You put the spare right on top of the engine.
Oh, that's wild. The engine's so compact.
Yeah, that you put the spare.
You
The
put
spare's right on top.
That's crazy. I was not even aware. I knew of DS, but I didn't know Citroën.
Yeah,
ever
so
made those.
Citroën also did them, and it's not too many people know about it because it actually had one prior to this one as a prototype, but they didn't go through with it, you know.
Wow.
And then NSU stopped because when they were bought out by Audi,
Right.
Audi decided to discontinue the Birotor.
Mm-hmm.
So we could say Citroën is the only car manufacturer with hydraulic suspension and a Birotor, right?
Right.
So because
Very
this
unique.
GS has also a hydraulic suspension on it.
Right.
So it's
Yeah, you can almost still see a little bit of
So-
the DS lines to that, can't
so
you?
yes, this one is called a GS, and then that's the DS right over there.
Right. Now, the Rotaries were great. They were smooth and they had high speed power, but gas
Yes,
mileage was not
but
their thing.
then that's why they don't exist anymore, right?
That's right.
But the RX-7, a lot of people had fun with the rotary engine.
Yep.
And Mazda is coming out again with the rotary, but a very small rotary for like a hybrid
Okay.
car. So electric, and then they got a little rotary engine. So Sahara, they produced close to 700 cars, and it's a 2CV, but with two engines. So you can have front wheel drive, or you can do rear wheel drive, or you can do all wheel drive.
That's wild.
You have a separate gas tank for each, and the gas tanks are underneath the seat here. So you can see when I open the door,
Oh, you're kidding.
it's right here. You'll see the gas tank is right there underneath the seat.
Is that
So
for the front or the rear?
So I'm not sure which one is which, but there's one for the front, one for the rear, and it's also can be a ejectable seat too, right?
Yeah, right.
So if we hit something, automatically you go up.
You're
with it.
out.
And then so you have two separate keys, everything, transmission. The only thing that's the same is the gear shift. That you switch a lever and then you hook up both transmission with the same gear shift. So you shift, and what you can do is you can start with this one, and if you want the second one, you just turn the key, hook it up, and then boom, it starts right up because you're already moving a little bit. You know, just like if you were just push starting it, if you wanted to.
That's wild.
So
So,
yeah.
So it's kind of a that is just fascinating.
You'll
There's the
see
gas tank
inside,
on the-
you'll have both the switch. So see here, you have two key switch here. It tells you which one, the front and the back, and then just one gearbox. And then this is your lever to connect both of them.
That is amazing.
And they use those, it was called the Sahara because they used a lot of them in the desert. Because they would really never get caught. And underneath this car is actually very heavy. So it doesn't move compared to the regular CV, which is very,
Oh, right.
very light and nimble. This one actually has a full plate underneath it so that if we hit something, it just bounce back. It's not, so it's...
Wow. So this was really heavy duty. Like you can even see the suspensions raised up higher too.
Yeah.
For more
Yeah,
clearance,
it was
I
more
guess.
beefy. Well, you got the two engines too.
Yep.
And
That is fascinating.
So-
So did they make very many of these?
694.
694.
Yep.
Okay. That is amazing. That is a very...
And you can adjust on all the two CVs. What a lot of folks don't know is you can adjust the headlights.
Really?
So depending on the load you have a knob, you turn,
Oh, yep.
and you
I
see
can
that?
see them. They're
You're
going
going
down.
down right now.
Yep.
Or you can go up. So
That-
depending what you have in the trunk, depending on what you have. Well, this one has no trunk, but
Right.
you know, the passenger, you can adjust your headlights.
Plus it has the convertible top, removable top.
Yeah, they all basically, they all had them.
Most, yeah.
And then this one has the spare right here on the front hood.
Yep. Yep. Wow. I'm surprised they didn't call it the 4CV.
Right. But they did make it was 4CV after
they?
that. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So here we have a 1965 Mustang. So this car is just not a regular 1965. It also has a true all-wheel drive system, so 37-63 ratio, and ABS brakes. And the all-wheel drive system was done by Ferguson. And if everyone knows that Ferguson did tractors and worked with Ford, and actually Ford bought patents from Ferguson, and I think it was a Fordson tractor was actually a Ferguson tractor built under license for Ford.
Really?
So Ford sent 2 Mustang over to Ferguson in England. One was blue and one was red. The blue one was converted through all-wheel drive and ABS brakes, and the red one just ABS brakes.
Okay.
And then they ran it, and it was very successful as far as the handling is concerned. The only issue is it was $500 more, and the Mustang were flying off the shelf.
Right.
So Ford did not see the need of doing all-wheel drive cars back then.
Right.
Right. So, but if they would have done it, they would have been, almost what? The next one is Audi 1981, right? The true all-wheel drive.
And you've got a great display here helping me see.
So you can see that the oil pan was modified here. So this is the very first production car with a true all-wheel drive system and ABS brakes, 1965.
Do you happen to know how the ABS system worked?
Yeah, so it's a Dunlop Maxaret system, and it acts like a little bit as a frog, but they use those on the airplanes.
Okay.
So the airplanes had those types of system already, and so Dunlop Maxaret worked with Ferguson to make it work with it, and you can see it's in the middle. It's between the two gear. It's right here. It's vacuum driven.
Interesting. And somehow it shuttered the brake fluid to make it let go and brake again?
Yeah. So it's more like, so it's not like ABS today.
Right.
So when you use it, it's more like a frog, right?
Okay.
Because it's on off, on off, on off.
Yeah.
It was screwed, but it worked.
Right.
Yeah.
It kept it from just locking up.
That's right. Yes.
Wow, and it's still got the
so
289 in there.
And you can see here the plate right here. Those are all the patents from Ferguson about the all-wheel drives.
Yeah.
Patent that he had, so Ferguson then did that, and then he did 22 police car right next to it, Zephyr, so the British Ford.
Yep.
And they did 22 police car, and then after that they did 320 FF Interceptor.
Oh.
And that was it. And then it was Audi 1981 that really took all-wheel drive to the next level.
Right.
But it was a very similar system that Ferguson designed back in the days.
It's just I guess the difference is Audi decided to go back into it and invest in it.
Right.
And make it work.
Ferguson did not have. Ferguson actually passed away in the early 60s, the man himself.
Yep.
So then the company, and there wasn't, at that time still, there was too advanced, right? So there's certain things, and Audi did it for rally.
Oh yeah.
So, this first Audi Quattro was for the rally cars.
Right.
That's how they got into it, and then they decided whoa, this is, the next best thing, and decided to do Audi Quattro for the folks. Yeah.
Because all of a sudden people like being able to drive in the snow better and all the other things.
Exactly.
So
yeah, and a lot of inventions always starts on the racetrack, right? So
that's right. Okay, so if anybody sees this badge, they're probably following this car down the road.
It's really special because the Tracta, actually, the engineer Fenaille and Grégoire invented the CV joint.
Okay.
And it was the very first time a front-wheel drive CV joints were running at Le Mans or anywhere. And they started actually in 27. The Tracta started racing there. And then this one was a 29 production, and they raced 4 years, 29, 30, 31, and 33, and always finished. It's the only car that's always finished the race with the same engine. And it also went back last year for the 100th year of Le Mans. it was invited back to race with the vintage cars. So we went, we didn't rebuild the engine, and you know, we only raced, so it's for vintage, it's only 4 hours. But still, she ran 4 hours.
That's fantastic.
So, you know, so she's, and then Grégoire, you know, invented the CV joint, sold his patent all over the world, and always was ahead. He was always trying to think of what he could do as an engineer to improve the automobile. So he built this one right next to it, which is a 6-cylinder Continental Tracta. It's very, very low. It's called a Tracta E. This is one of the very few left.
Wow.
And again with CV joints.
Right, so it's front-wheel drive. So the Cord is what comes to my mind.
Yes.
It was many years later than this.
So the Cord, the first Cord was in 1929.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yep. The L29 for the year 1929, and the Ruxton's was L29, but Tracta started in 26.
I see.
So Tracta was now you had also Alvis that had front-wheel drive, but it was not CV joints. Right, so the CV joint was the big thing about these cars, you know, that Grégoire invented, and then you know, there's a few people now. The Cord and the Ruxton have CV joints, but they're a little bit different. They changed the design a little bit.
I see.
For the U.S.
And what's the significance of the yellow car in the back?
So the yellow car in the back is actually a very important car too. It's a Ford. Okay. A front-wheel drive, a race car with the race engine. It has a roof head, which is a high compression head. You can see it right here. And it has wind-fill carburetor. We do not know the full history of this car, where we were trying to find out, because it's front-wheel drive. It's very rare to find one of these types of racers front-wheel drive back then. It's not, except, you know, Miller was doing front-wheel drives, but it's not a Miller. Was it a prototype for Miller before? We're not sure.
Yeah.
That's why we say Miller or not Miller. We don't know. One day we'll find out. But it was definitely a race car because of what, you know, the engines was is actually this is probably one of the only original roof heads still in existence. Yeah. They do these heads still, they reproduce these heads now for vintage racing.
Do they really?
So, but, and it also runs too, you know, like all of them.
Oh, that's fantastic. Be careful of that exhaust pipe when you're getting in and out of it.
Yeah, right? It's hot.
It's all business here.
Yes.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, that's crazy. And a lot of race cars back then, like the Tracta, the accelerator pedal is in the middle instead of the brake. They switched them. So you got to be careful, you know. You only make the mistake once, I always say, right? So then you really learn quick.
Yeah, I'll bet.
If you're still around. So.
Wow. So I'm sure this is a lot of fun to drive, huh?
Yes, this is actually when I went back to the track, we had the gentlemen racing in the S curves. They would actually pass a lot more powerful cars because of the handling of the front wheel drive.
Right.
Of course, straightaways that get passed because this is only a 1 liter.
Yeah.
So it won Le Mans in its class.
Yeah.
In the 1 liter class.
I see.
You know, so it's a it's a great handling car. The wheels in the front are wider than the wheels in the rear.
Right. The front track is much wider.
Yes.
Huh. Right.
That caused for better handling.
Yeah, so you got better handling and also gives, I guess, room for turning radius and everything else with those wheels out there. That's fantastic. Well, so these are 29 and 30. I mean, you see the resemblance, but they're also quite different, aren't they?
Yes. And then you can see here that this is a true race car because everything was perforated. Because when they raced at Le Mans, they sealed it so that you could not open for the water, you could not open it for the gas. They had, when they pitted, they had an official cut the seals off so that you could put fuel and gas, oil, and all that. Because they were very, and then you had to carry a toolbox, you had to carry a spare, you had to carry everything like a regular car.
Okay.
You know, it's not like that anymore. But back then, the car the car had to be able to be driven regularly on the road. So
I
it had,
see.
you know, lights, everything like a common car of the days.
I see. That's the way the rules were.
Yes.
That is fascinating. Well, you have some amazing cars here, and I appreciate you taking time
No,
to
you're
tell us
welcome.
about them. This is fantastic.